Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're not really focusing on the next viral chatbot or, the latest hardware.
No.
We're going deep on a much quieter, but I think a profoundly dramatic shift happening inside serious organizations right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's this move from AI experimentation to, AI operations.
Right.
For the last couple of years, it feels like AI has been treated as almost innovation theater.
Yeah, the big show.
Exactly. And now the curtain is closing. So our mission today is to really extract the essential understanding of this operational AI era from the sources you shared.
Okay.
It seems like a total restructuring of priorities, moving from that purely technical question of what new things can AI do
Yes.
to the far more complex and maybe more boring question, how do we run this thing responsibly?
Reliably, yeah.
And without creating, massive organizational exposure.
That shift in emphasis you just described, from flashy capability to hard accountability, that is precisely what the analysis highlights. The sources bring up a recent perspective from the Council on Foreign Relations, which frames 2026 as a truly decisive phase for AI.
Decisive how?
They argue this phase is going to be shaped less by speculative breakthroughs, the next big model release, and much more by the messy strategic realities of governance.
Ah, the hard stuff.
The hard stuff. Successful enterprise adoption and intense strategic competition. The fundamental focus has really moved from discovery to control.
So it sounds like we're moving past the hype cycle and into the era of dependency.
That's a great way to put it.
But hold on, if we are still seeing huge advances in models, are we really past the discovery phase? Or is it more that we're just acknowledging that management is the immediate bottleneck?
That's a great distinction. It's not that we've stopped innovating,
Right.
but innovation has stopped being the main driver of enterprise risk. Think back to the last couple of years. Organizations were all about proof of concepts.
Pilots, demos.
Exactly. Teams are running pilots, buying licenses for tools, testing chatbots, doing, simple document summarization.
And some of that was valuable, I'm sure.
Some generated immense value, but a significant amount, as the source materials put it, produced demos, not outcomes.
Demos, not outcomes. I like that.
They were these siloed efforts that looked amazing in a boardroom.
Yeah.
But they just weren't engineered to integrate deeply into the business process. They were experiments, really, running on the fringes.
So those flashy demos worked perfectly in the sandbox, but the moment they tried to connect them to the messy, real-world flow of internal data and legacy systems.
The complexity just overwhelmed the benefit.
Exactly.
But now we're seeing that transition.
Yep.
AI is rapidly becoming infrastructure. It's getting embedded into routine, essential workflows all across the organization.
Like what specifically?
Customer support, marketing automation, software development, coding assistance, analytics pipelines, HR processes, even just internal knowledge management.
So it's not a novelty anymore.
No, it's the new plumbing of the business.
And that, I assume, is where the risk profile changes dramatically.
Oh, completely.
When you're running a small pilot, a mistake is, a minor bug, you fix it and move on. It's all contained.
But the game changes when these systems become integrated infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
A mistake stops being a debug problem.
And it starts being
An exposure problem.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about compliance failures, serious security incidents if data access is mismanaged, or just large-scale operational failure. And the worst part is the scale.
What do you mean by that?
Because AI generates such convincing, confident-sounding output at machine speed, errors don't just happen one at a time.
They scale.
They scale rapidly, and they compound before any human oversight can possibly spot them.
Can you give us a concrete illustration of what that scaled error actually looks like?
Sure. Let's consider a procurement department. They use an LLM-powered system to summarize and classify incoming vendor contracts.
Okay, makes sense.
And its job is to flag potential compliance issues based on regulatory changes. Now, if that model experiences what we call drift,
Right.
meaning its performance subtly degrades, maybe because, say, new regulatory jargon has entered the real-world data it's processing.
I see.
It might begin misclassifying high-value, high-risk contracts as low-risk.
And if that's happening at scale?
Well, if that error rate is small, maybe 5%. But the system processes 10,000 contracts a day.
You've got a massive escalating compliance exposure accumulating in real time.
That's it. That speed of failure is what keeps executives and regulators up at night.
It sounds like the human element, the management, the oversight, it can never truly keep pace with the speed of an automated error.
It can't. And the scaled risk is what's driving the external pressure as well.
Right.
The CFR analysis points out that policymakers are no longer just waiting for the next technical breakthrough. They are under immense pressure to turn broad ethical principles into concrete, enforceable rules.
Society's patience is wearing thin.
I think so. We've moved past that honeymoon phase of asking, what can AI do?
Yeah.
We are now squarely focused on, under what strict conditions should AI be allowed to do it?
Okay, so that brings us to the core tension of this deep dive.
It does. The central analysis of the source material is that while the engine is technology, the challenge of running it safely is fundamentally a management problem.
That is the counterintuitive nugget, isn't it? People are still mesmerized by the sheer computational power, thinking we need better chips.
Right.
But what we really need is better management discipline, better internal systems.
Mhm.
But why is it a management problem and not, say, a software engineering problem?
Because the hardest questions organizations are struggling with are what the sources call the boring but decisive management questions.
The ones that have nothing to do with training data or model waste.
Nothing. They are. Who officially owns the system? What specific sensitive data is it allowed to touch? What are the clearly defined guardrails?
How do we monitor it?
How do we continually monitor it for failure? What's the official process when it fails in a mission-critical app? And most critically, for any kind of audit.
Let me guess. How do we prove what it did?
How do we legally and operationally prove what the system did and why it made a specific decision?
And exploring those questions, I mean, it just reveals the complexity. Ownership isn't simple when you're using a blend of vendor models and internal stuff, right?
Absolutely not. The ownership question is completely decentralized. You might have a marketing team using one vendor's LLM,
An HR team using another for recruitment.
and a legal team building a custom internal summarizer. When something goes wrong, the immediate question is, who is accountable for the output?
Not the underlying model.
Exactly. And this lack of centralized visibility and ownership is the single biggest governance gap.
So organizations are exposed because they adopted AI as a feature they could buy,
Yes,
not a new system they needed to engineer and control from the ground up.
that's spot on. And that feature mindset means many organizations lack basic visibility into what we call shadow AI.
Shadow AI.
They just don't know where AI is being used across the enterprise. They don't know what specific, possibly sensitive data flows are feeding those systems.
Or what prompts are generating customer-facing outcomes.
Precisely. And if you don't have that baseline visibility, and the sources make this point very sharply, then governance becomes purely performative.
I think I know the quote.
You cannot govern what you cannot see.
There it is. And in a practical sense, what does not seeing look like? Is it just teams secretly running ChatGPT?
It's more insidious than that. It's an engineer building a helpful, low-cost internal data analysis tool using a cloud AI API
Okay.
and feeding it proprietary customer data because it makes their job easier, but doing it outside of the official security review process.
And it works great.
It works great until that data is accidentally exposed or the model starts behaving unpredictably because no one registered it, no security team is monitoring it, and no one owns the failure protocols.
And this leads directly to that core internal tension. Speed versus control.
Yes.
Teams feel they need to move fast, adopt the latest tools, leverage every innovative edge, but management needs to impose structure and track everything.
That tension is omnipresent because the tech itself is so fluid. AI systems evolve rapidly. Vendors push massive updates to models constantly, sometimes changing their behavior without a clear release note.
And employees see the productivity benefits and just start using them.
Informally, yes. So the operational question is a real tightrope walk. How do we allow for useful bottom-up innovation without instantly creating a patchwork of untracked compounding AI risks?
And the regulatory environment is only adding external pressure to, well, slow down. Governance and strategic competition are increasingly dictating what organizations can deploy, even if it's technically possible and profitable.
Absolutely. Regulatory requirements like the EU's AI Act, procurement expectations from big B2B customers demanding certified AI safety standard.
Not to mention security concerns.
All of it is forcing discipline. And the source stresses that in this new era, discipline is the true differentiator, not just the technical capability to build a model in the first place.
That makes perfect sense. So we've diagnosed the problem. The operational era is defined by these complex management issues driven by scaled risk and a lack of visibility. So what does this all mean for the people who actually have to run the business? Let's talk about the required mindset shifts.
Yeah, let's. We can structure this around the three key groups from the source analysis. starting at the executive level, the business leaders.
Okay.
For them, the mindset has to decisively shift from viewing AI as a productivity tool to treating it like critical infrastructure.
Like the electrical grid or the core network.
Exactly. It means moving from enthusiasm to rigor.
What are the immediate required steps that signal that shift to rigor?
They need to prioritize foundational controls. This starts with a mandatory, comprehensive AI inventory across the whole enterprise.
You can't manage what you don't measure.
You can't. They must assign formal, accountable owners to every single system, even the third-party ones. They have to clearly define permissible use cases, what the AI can and absolutely cannot do.
Especially with customer data.
Especially. And they need to build continuous monitoring.
Let's focus on that monitoring for a second because that's where the tech meets the management. We mentioned drift earlier. For business leaders who aren't ML engineers, why is monitoring model performance so vital?
It's vital because AI systems are trained on historical data, but they operate in the living, evolving real world. Over time, the environment changes.
Customer behavior shifts, markets evolve.
Regulations change. If the data the model sees in production starts to look significantly different from its training data, its accuracy degrades. That's model drift.
Oh.
And if you aren't monitoring for drift, if you just assume the model you deployed 6 months ago is still performing perfectly, you are accumulating risk without knowing it.
So what's the test?
The test of control, according to the source, is simple and binary. If you, as a leader, cannot reliably answer the questions, where is AI used, what is its stated purpose, and what is its current error rate?
Then you are definitionally not in control of your critical infrastructure.
You're flying blind.
That's a powerful and practical metric. Okay, let's talk about the second group, risk and compliance teams. Historically, they've lived in the world of policy documents and dusty manuals.
Right.
This operational era demands they move beyond just writing the rules.
Their focus has to shift towards building operating mechanisms that ensure resilience, not just bureaucratic compliance. They need to move from passive auditing to active, proactive management.
Can we get specific? What are some simple mechanisms that actually deliver that resilience?
The sources suggest controls that ensure friction is applied only where risk is highest. For example, implementing tiered approval pathways.
So not everything needs a full-blown review.
Exactly. A low-impact use case, like summarizing internal meeting notes, gets automatic approval. But a high-impact use case, like integrating AI into lending decisions,
Or patient diagnosis.
that requires a formal, multi-department review process, no exceptions. They also need to implement mandatory red team testing for all sensitive workflows.
Red teaming. That's usually a cybersecurity concept, right?
Yeah.
What does red teaming an AI system even involve?
It means you're actively trying to break the system in specific targeted ways.
You're not just testing if it works.
No, you're proactively probing for vulnerabilities. Things like prompt injection, data poisoning, or intentional bias exploitation. This is essential if you deploy, say, a public-facing chatbot.
You want to find the weaknesses before the public does.
You have to. A red team would try to make that chatbot endorse political statements or divulge sensitive internal information. Testing for these weaknesses before deployment is critical.
Okay, what else?
And finally, risk teams must mandate robust, detailed audit logs and incident reporting built into every key AI system.
So you have a paper trail.
If you can't replay the sequence of prompts and data inputs that led to a specific output, you have no accountability, and therefore no legal defense and no operational learning.
That's a massive undertaking, but it's clearly necessary. Let's turn now to the third group, the employees on the front lines, the users. It sounds like the new core skill is not just knowing how to write a good prompt.
Their job description is changing profoundly. The new professional differentiator is not prompting. It is judgment.
Judgment.
As AI becomes fully integrated and normalized, the human element becomes the critical safety and quality control layer.
And what does good judgment look like in practice for an employee using one of these systems?
It's really three things. First, knowing when it's appropriate to use AI, understanding the ethical and policy boundaries.
Second,
Knowing how to rigorously verify the outputs, especially when the stakes are high. And third, knowing exactly when to escalate a process to a human supervisor or the risk team.
so it's not just taking the AI's word for it.
Never. For example, if a financial analyst uses AI to draft a report, good judgment means not just checking the facts, but scrutinizing the tone and context for inappropriate confidence or potential misinterpretation of complex data that the model might have oversimplified.
Bad judgment is just hitting publish because it looks convincing.
That's the risk. As these tools become ubiquitous, employees who demonstrate disciplined use and clear, verifiable judgment will naturally become the professional high performers.
So what does this all mean? We started by noting this quiet, dramatic shift toward operational rigor.
Mm,
The sources seem to confirm that the operational AI era isn't some future date we're preparing for. It's the reality we are already living in today.
exactly. The era of the shiny demo is over. The decisive question for 2026 or beyond is whether institutions, whether yours or your competitors, can keep pace with the rapid rate of adoption by building real governance, real accountability, and real safety directly into their everyday use.
Right.
The organizations that thrive in this environment will not simply be the ones that have access to the best models.
It's more than that.
It's the ones that can run those models responsibly, consistently, and crucially, in a way that earns and maintains the trust of their customers, their regulators, and their own employees.
That brings everything full circle, doesn't it? If the hardest questions about operational AI are indeed managerial, about ownership, accountability, failure protocols, inventory, it forces a serious thought.
What's that?
What core management principles, the ones established decades ago in manufacturing, finance, and engineering, long before the AI era even began, are now most urgently in need of strict, uncompromising enforcement to safely handle these powerful new systems? That's something worth mulling over as you look at how your organization is tracking its AI use today.